identify or are defined by what the airplane looks like. And so, in that sense, we can enable strategic decisions by airframers, and we talk to them constantly about what we might do to make their plane better. But ultimately, in the end, they define what airplane they want, and we do the engine to match. So if I take the A350, which is going to have our most powerful engine, the A350-1000 variant will require a higher thrust level than the XWB that we currently tested. The current XWB is 84,000 pounds of thrust, and that's what's being tested on our test beds, and will fly very shortly, as soon as the weather gets warmer in Europe. It's ready to fly on a flying test bed, an A380 flying test bed. That will power the A350-900 and 800 variants. The A350 XWB-1000 standard, which is the bigger aircraft, requires a higher thrust engine, and we have secured sole source on that airplane, and we will provide an increased power variant at 97,000 pounds of thrust. If you say how much bigger can engines get, well, frankly, it's a question of how much bigger will the airplanes get. Because if somebody said you need 150,000 pounds of thrust, we should provide that. In fact, that is the number we've chosen to size this test bed at, just in case we have to go up to those thrust levels at some point in the future. But currently, we don't see anybody planning to go anywhere near those levels of thrust. The aircraft that people seem to want are sized like the A350-1000, excuse me, at around 97,000 pounds of thrust.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Altian from the Straits Times in Singapore. I'm wondering if you could put this investment in context for the local population here. For example, you mentioned that you're going to create 500 new jobs. When would that take place? What kinds of jobs would it be, and what kind of proportion would be made up of Singaporeans?
Well, the 500 jobs we created are truly incremental, and there'll be 1,000 people at the start. Some of those have been relocated from elsewhere in Singapore. I think we're at about 200 at the moment, I think, new recruits in this facility, and this is going to ramp up in line with what I was describing earlier, as we have the load. In fact, ahead of the load requirement, because we do the training and so on. They're skilled jobs with people with technical capabilities, and we think, we believe in Rolls-Royce worldwide. The sort of jobs that we bring are well paid, and they're high-tech jobs, and they also create other jobs around the location. Many studies will say that at least 4 jobs are created for every high-tech job. In some studies say much higher than that. So we think the good quality jobs in high-tech, and they're also, we think we've got good visibility of our future. Our order book is over £60 billion. So when you sort of look at an investment like this, you think about when we decided to make this investment. It was post Lehman Brothers, deep recession. Not many companies and countries around the world were thinking about putting in serious manufacturing investment at that point in time, and we did. And it's here now, because we've got that visibility of the future development and the need. So we think this is really good for Singapore. We think it's really good for us in Rolls-Royce, and we think it's also good for us as a company that is increasingly, we see ourselves as global. So we have access now to a richer seam of talent and people with a different perspective, and that not just in technical roles, that's actually going to improve the way in which we see the world. So I think it's good from lots of perspectives.
And the additional 500 jobs brings us to a total of?
That'll be 2,000 people in Rolls-Royce in Singapore, working on Rolls-Royce equipment or in the other businesses we have here. Excuse me. You asked about Singaporeans. We anticipate between 80 and 90% of the workforce in this site will be Singaporean, and that reflects pretty much where we are today with the stable activity that's been going on for 12 years. So up to 90%.
And I think we'll be responsible for about 0.5% of Singaporean GDP.
With regard to that, I was wondering if you could elaborate on breakdown the 0.5% of GDP, where is it coming from?
I don't have the figures to hand.
In general, there's the activity that we're responsible for. There's our direct suppliers, there's our indirect suppliers, and then there's the induced employment. So if you take that, and we did a study a couple of years ago, and it's public knowledge, that then generates will generate, when this facility is fully wrapped up in a few years, will generate about 1.7 billion Singapore dollars. That equals about 0.5% of GDP.
And one last question. For these jobs, have these jobs already been created? So have you hired these 500 employees already?
The new employees we've hired for the production here is about 200 at the moment, and it will ramp up to the 500 in line with and slightly before the production ramp up that was described earlier. So over 2 or 3 years.
Over the next 2 to 3 years.
Mayfan from Nikkei. Congratulations for the opening. I have 2 questions. One is about the part sourcing. You mentioned 75% as a purchase. What's the percentage that you purchase from Asian supplier, and do you see the percentage to grow as the facility here opens, or have you already seen some increase in that?
I think, to answer your question generally, I think we will be seeing a significant increase over the next decade in sourcing in Asia. I don't think that this facility itself will not have a direct impact on the sourcing, because we source globally, and because there's such a high value-added components, the logistics cost of shipping some components, whilst it's not insignificant, it isn't the only factor in our sourcing. The stability of supply, the currencies, the basic capability of our suppliers is the most important thing. And we are seeing suppliers develop in Asia that meet all those requirements. So I think over time we will see growth. And I don't have the precise number of what we source in Asia to hand. We can maybe do that later. But it will grow.
We've got about